fact, we spoke to one of the trainer pilots with the Royal Air Force who had played an instrumental role in training Indian fighter pilots. We asked him as to how exactly was it phased out in UK and what does it mean with Indian Air Force still continuing to use it. The Jaguar aircraft was also procured by the United Kingdom back in 1960, was also used by a few other countries. It has been phased out in many countries, but still being used here in India. Joining us is a former pilot serving with the Royal Air Force in United Kingdom, Mr. Tim Davis. Thank you very much for speaking to Republic TV. This was an aircraft which was also used by the United Kingdom, phased out after a point in time. In fact, a few other countries along with India was actually using it. Could you help us understand why exactly did the United Kingdom really phase this out and what was the issue?
Yes, absolutely. Good to be here. The Jaguar, we flew for a long time in the UK, about 34 years. So really, we did a lot with that aircraft. It was a low-level strike attack aircraft used in a similar way to the way India also uses its aircraft. But we did find that obviously better aircraft were coming on stream, such as the Tornado GL4 that I flew, that was already in service, and also the Typhoon, which of course had more powerful engines, updated avionics, and of course it could carry more fuel and weaponry. So the Jaguar became a little bit redundant, and of course we phased it out after quite an extensive service.
Mr. Davis, you're saying that there were certain issues. Could you help us understand what are the issues that you were speaking about? And if at all this was being utilized by the other air forces, what were the reasons for it? Yes,
so obviously it was a single seat. Primarily single-seat, low-level strike attack aircraft. Had a very small wing, you see, it was one of the issues, and it was primarily designed as a flying training aircraft. But that proved very difficult for the students. Now, I trained a lot of Indian students in the Royal Air Force, very good pilots, all of them, and we sent them back onto aircraft such as the MiG-21 and the Jaguar. And the problem that we had is that some of those students were killed. The aircraft is a difficult aircraft to fly. It does take quite a lot of talent and a very good pilot to operate it. And the newer aircraft were much easier to fly with fly-by-wire systems and flight control systems. So really, the Royal Air Force, it did have some accidents with the aircraft. It couldn't carry as many bombs as other airplanes, and it couldn't also carry as much fuel. So these legacy aircraft pretty much just went by the wayside as newer aircraft came in and replaced them.
How do you really look at the fact that it was still being utilized by several air forces, including the Indian Air Force, and the fact that some would argue that certain modernizations that were brought in actually helped this aircraft to be used longer?
Yes, of course. And we looked at the Honeywell engine upgrade that you were doing for your aircraft and now being cancelled back in 2019, I believe, a very expensive upgrade. You have to take on the whole maintenance package. But even if you were to replace avionics and you were to replace engines, you've still got the problem with the fatigue levels on the overall airframe. There's only so much of an aircraft you can replace. And eventually you have to limit what that aircraft can do, how many Gs it can do, or how fast it can go. And that's when you start getting into costs such as replacing bits that are very expensive, and it becomes cheaper to just go into a whole new aircraft procurement program, which I see you're doing with HAL Industries, I believe, on the Tejas 2.
As far as the Jaguars that were procured by India, it was produced jointly by United Kingdom and France. During the period that you were there, was there any discussion or was there any sort of a communication to the Indian Air Force that perhaps it was time to phase this out or bring in the much needed modernization and reforms in the system itself?
Well, I wouldn't be part of that because I was an instructor. So I was teaching British and Indian students on these aircraft on the wall behind me here, the Hawk, which is a very successful platform, of course. But what tends to happen is when one country starts phasing out an aircraft, the other countries look to that country and they tend to buy the spares from the aircraft that's being phased out. So I'm sure India would have been part of that program. However, of course, India's decided to keep that aircraft flying much longer longer than any other country has decided to keep it on. And of course, it has upgraded for precision weapons, and it has upgraded a few other things as well. But of course, it does come a time, doesn't it, really, where you have to ask yourself, as the Royal Air Force Red Arrows aerobatics team who fly the Hawk T1 are also asking themselves, how long can we really keep this aircraft flying, and how safe is it actually going to be?
Mr. Davis, one final question that I would like to ask you is that certain incidents that have taken place in the last few months here in India sparked another major debate with regards to phasing this off. And particularly given the fact that this aircraft was phased off in countries like UK and even places like Oman and Nigeria. And that is the reason why there is a massive debate that's going on right now. How do you really weigh in on this entire issue? And should there be a furore over this entire issue? Or would you say that we are capable to take our own decision?
Absolutely, 100%. India always has been. Most definitely. It's a friend of the British people, and any advice that we can give to you, absolutely take as you will. The thing about the Jaguar is you have some very, very talented instructors and the talented pilots on that aeroplane that are keeping the young guys alive. But any one death of a pilot is an absolute tragedy. It should never happen. And what you tend to find is the older the aircraft is flying, then of course, unfortunately, the worse this is going to become. So absolutely, I think it is about time that the Jaguar was phased out. You do have to look at what is going to replace it. You do have other very capable aircraft in the Indian Air Force, and it's a very, very capable Air Force as well. So I'm sure you will come out on top, but a serious decision will have to be made on the Jaguar. And what most countries would do is look for a replacement and then stop the flying and bring all those pilots on the Jaguar, retrain them onto the new aircraft, and then bring that new aircraft into service, which would be a lot safer and a lot more effective for the Indian Air Force.